This is Business and Economy Network.
Hello viewers, glad to know you are watching your program. Wherever you are watching this program, I want to say thank you so very much for allowing us into your homes, offices, wherever you are watching. I want to say thank you. You are watching Business and Economy Network. I want to especially thank those of you watching us in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Ilori, Kano, Kaduna. Those of you watching us via the YouTube channel. Those of you watching us outside the shores of Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana. Wherever you are watching around the world, I want to say thank you so very much. My name has not changed. My name still remains Peter Nwoche. I want to especially thank my colleague for holding forth while I was away. Well, for the program rundown today, we are looking at the Director General of National Automotive Council, formerly, but now is now called National Automotive Development and Design Council, in person of Engineer Aminu Jalad. Well, we're also looking at for special reports. We have Vaughn, formerly called Volkswagen of Nigeria, and the activities and what they are doing in the automotive industry. Now, for company in focus, we are showcasing Dizengov Nigeria Limited. The managing director is on the block, to lend their voice on what is happening with them in the agricultural subsector of Nigerian economy. Well, it's going to be an interesting watch. Relax yourself, brace up, because it's going to be incisive, educative, and very informative. I'll be back after this time out.
Information is very good, he said, but right information is very vital, especially to your business. Why not join us on Business and Economy Network, where you learn more about business information.
The Center for Automotive and Development, ZARIA, later became National Automotive Design and Development Council. The primary concern of the agency was to put in place the capacity for automobile manufacturing companies that would produce low-cost vehicles for Nigerians. Another aim of the agency was to create enough capacity for research and development in area of automobile assembling and checking of autos standard manufactured in Nigeria. At the moment, the interest of stakeholders and investors have been commendable, which shows that the auto policy is sure to be a success.
I'm Engineer Aminu Jalal, the Director General of the National Automotive Design and Development Council. Formerly, we were in the National Automotive Council. We had a sister body, the National Automotive the Center for Automotive Design and Development, based in Zaria. It was set up principally to design and develop low-cost vehicle prototypes and carry out research and development in the automotive sector, and also do some work in automotive standards. So because of the similarity of these functions, so government decided to merge the two agencies together. This was affected last year by an act of parliament. So now we have changed our name to National Automotive Design and Development Council. And we have our responsibilities, former responsibility of the council, plus that of the former Center for Automotive Design and Development, have now been coalesced together. So we'll be doing the two functions of the two former agencies. But all our activities before will continue. All the approvals we had before as NAC, National Automotive Council, or the Center for Automotive Design are still valid, will still continue. The objective of the policy is to bring back automotive assembly and then develop local content. So the first one has been successful, very successful. The response by investors has exceeded our expectations. The first thing is that we had 14 assembly plants and bodybuilders that were almost closed down, but they have a new lease of life. From 2014, they started to produce new products. For instance, PAN resumed assembling Peugeot vehicles. Then Anamco had a contract manufacturing to do some Shackman trucks, and now they are negotiating to do Yutong buses. NTM Kano have been doing some assembly operations. Then Bond, the highlight is Bond that closed down in 1994. Now, because of the policy, they have entered into agreement with overseas technical partners. They are now assembling Nissan vehicles, Hyundai vehicles, and they just resumed Volkswagen this year. after Volkswagen developed in 1994. But Volkswagen cars are now being assembled in Nigeria now. Then some companies, work has gone in advanced stage. For instance, Century Auto have just set up an assembly plant which they are just completed to assemble Toyota products, which they hope to start before the end of the year. The same thing with Honda. Honda, as you know, have a motorcycle factory at Edioroko. They are converting part of it to assemble vehicles. Then Ford, I think there was an announcement in South Africa about 2 months back that Ford signed with Coscharis to set up assembly operations, which they hope to do to start by the end of the year or early next year. And General Motors have reached agreement with General Motors and to assemble some General Motors products, which will probably start sometime next year. So the response for the assembly operations has been very good, and right now we are starting to focus on developing automotive local content.
The automobile policy in Nigeria attracts some benefits in such a way that some raw materials imported will attract zero duty charges depending on the type brought in, and others that will attract duty charges will attract very minimal charges. Indigenous producers of batteries, paints, glass, etc. are encouraged to keep producing since their products don't need certain volumes to satisfy the local content requirements.
No, the policy itself did give them some incentives. For instance, the raw materials they bring, if it is CKD, is zero duty. If it is SKD, vary between 5 to 10%. Then the other one is they can import some units at lower duty, depending on their production level, so that we can have enough vehicles with that increase in prices. Because these incentives are quite attractive, that's why we have quite a lot of people coming in to assemble. The next one, where we really create a lot of the jobs, is the local content issue. We're looking up to it. The problem with local content is that you must have the assembly operations going. They must reach certain level of production before it will be attractive for people to come and set up. But we're looking initially to start with things like battery, which will supply to many plants, so that that one will not require one particular manufacturer to have certain level of production. If a battery manufacturer can supply all the assembly plants, then he can have volumes. So we are, in fact, even this morning before you came, I had a meeting with a prophetic battery manufacturer, and another two will be coming soon. At least we have two already, and there's already somebody in Ilorin doing SKD battery assembly. So we are trying to encourage them to start with things like battery, like paints, like chemicals, like glasses that can that doesn't depend on one particular model volume. Then after that, we hope as the policy goes on, more people buy more made in Nigeria, then there will be acceptance to, or rather it will be attractive for local content people to supply them because they will have the volume to supply them. So we are starting with things like battery, brake pads, chemicals and paints. And then we move on to other individual items like seats, like the exhaust system and so on. Oh, by the way, these are things we used to do. All these things, in fact, in the old 504, we used to have 40% local content. We are doing all the glasses, all the seats, all the tires, the batteries, the cables, the carpet, the radiator, the plastic parts, the bumpers, and even the engine sleeve, we are doing that. So gradually, those things we used to do, we are bringing them back to supply their assembly plants, yes. The first thing is that, unfortunately, a lot of the manufacturing closed down due to the problem we had, especially with power. And then since 2005, we have lowered our tariffs, so our manufacturers cannot compete with the Chinese, especially Chinese and Indian imports. Our tire operations closed down in 2005 to 2006 or 7. The batteries, we used to have about 5-6 battery manufacturers. Only one remained, Union Auto. And so that is why, in fact, on 20th of this month, we have a meeting where specifically we will issue this issue of local content, so that we are trying to develop some incentives, or rather disincentives to the assembly plants. If we identify a product that is made in required quantity with the correct quality at the reasonable price, and also in numbers and the timing. When the assembly want it, they should get it when they want it. Then we will have some incentives for the assembly plants to take these items, and then we will give them a disincentive to import. We will make it difficult for them to import that item. But you have to realize the assembly plants put their nameplate on the vehicle. Whether it's Peugeot, whether it's Nissan, whether it's Hyundai, whether it's Inosun. So if they buy from you, they must make sure this quality is very important. Because if that item fails, people will not say, oh, so they will blame the brand. So that is why we are working, we have already contacted UNIDO and JICA to help us with benchmarking studies so that we can see where our local manufacturers are deficient with global best practices. Then we can have programs to bring them up to global best practices so that they can supply the assembly plants. Unless they can produce with the correct manpower, with the correct equipment, with the correct quality management systems, the assembly plant will not patronize them. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we're already started.
To get insights, views, and critics on key players on various sectors of the Nigerian economy, watch Business and Economy Network. Vaughan is one of the first automobile companies set up in the 70s, then known as Volkswagen Nigeria Limited. It produced the popularly Volkswagen brand known in Nigeria. The company was quite effective as its brand were well known and patronized by many Nigerians before negative economic issues took over and things changed for the company to the extent that it was shut down for about 18 years. It was revived as a matter of government interest in the mid-20s.
Was initially set up as Volkswagen of Nigeria Limited, one of the first set of automobile companies that were set up in the 70s, and it produced the popular Volkswagen brand of vehicles. We were quite effective and quite profitable for many years before the economic issues took over and the place had to shut down. It remained shut down for about 18 years, and about then the federal government decided in the mid-2000s that they should sell off some of the enterprises in which government had interest that were not doing pretty well. This happened to be one of them, and we had the foresight to come in and bid it for the project. We were lucky to have won, and in the last 4 years we have been busy resuscitating the plant and bringing it up to a state-of-the-art facility that could assemble vehicles for use locally. So Vaughan had come from a very prosperous automobile company in the 80s to a totally shut down facility, and eventually resuscitated about 4 years ago, and now producing vehicles for the use of the Nigerian masses.
Vaughan started as an automobile distribution company, but to add value to the lives of Nigerians, the management decided to manufacture automobiles here in the country as a means of empowering the people of Nigeria to take their lives in their own hands. Nigeria possesses a huge market, and by doing more than selling cars, the automotive industry in Nigeria can also put the Nigerian people to better use.
Well, the major strength of Vaughan derives from the what you might call the will of the promoters to activate that latent potential in Nigerians to take their own life in their hands. We see a set of people that have all it takes to succeed, but oftentimes the opportunity eludes them because one thing or the other is missing. It's very easy to take the easy path to development or acquiring wealth. But over time, you find that you need to go into a more enduring relationship. We had started as an automobile distribution company. And like most other projects that we are involved in, we determined that at some point, you must start to add value. And it was the desire to add value that made the promoters decide to integrate backwards and start to put together vehicles that we had hitherto imported wholesale. No economy would survive for long, just merely sourcing foreign exchange and importing goods that have been produced by other nations of the world, when we had all the resources in this country to also do the same. So we thought, whether we liked it or not, that Nigeria would have to get to a point where it made its own vehicle. We realized that Nigeria and Bangladesh were the only two of the top 10 countries in the world, top most populous countries in the world, that didn't have an auto industry. And with 170 million people, there was a huge market. As part of the ECOWAS community, that's another huge market, all of which surround us, and which, if we're able to tap into, we would definitely be able to add value to this nation and this region. So that was the motivating force, to always add value to whatever business that we got involved in. It was easy to make money just selling cars, but we thought it was time Nigeria went back to start to put its own people to use. We saw a lot of Nigerian graduates, engineering graduates, most of them work in banks today, because that's the only place where they could pass the numerated exams. There were no industries available. All the industries had died for some excuse or other. No electricity, no water, no roads. But no one was ready to do what it took to invest in those facilities and see whether or not in the long term they would not generate much better future for Nigerians and the economy at large. So these were the motivating issues that made us go into this business. Also believing that one way or the other, over time, the huge markets and the potentials that there are in it, if well taken up, could actually be a fairly successful venture.
Desengoff has been operating in Nigeria since 1958, fully in support of growing the Nigerian economy. The company finds the new democratic development in Nigeria to be very encouraging, although there are enormous challenges for business and governments in Nigeria. However, food security is something that all countries of the world are concerned about. True, Africa can be a major food supplier to the world, but it has to first think of itself. Unless we grow it here in Nigeria, food may not be available for the populace.
Yes, Desengoff, we came to Nigeria since 1958, participated in the economy since that time, through thick and thin, good years, less good years. We're very committed to Nigeria, as can be evidenced by the fact that we've been here so long. And I'm hoping my successors will be sitting here in 2158. Well, we're very encouraged by the continued development of democracy in Nigeria. We were not pessimistic, both pre the election or post the election. Being a British man, I'm used to hundreds of years of change in governments and etc. So we felt relatively positive and continue to feel positive. Although there are enormous challenges facing the government of Nigeria, business in Nigeria, the people of Nigeria over the next few years. And we hope, in our small way, to stay hand in hand and contribute to successful outcomes as these challenges are faced and addressed and overcome.
There's a huge gap when it comes to how mechanized Nigeria is when compared with other advanced countries like the United States of America. However, unless Nigeria is properly mechanized, it will not be able to produce enough food for the populace. High interest rates, loans or finance cannot as well help Nigeria to become highly mechanized. The structure of the Land Use Act and the traditions in terms of land ownership also makes it hard for farmers to use land as collateral for long-term loans at low interest rates in Nigeria.
Hey, I mean, tractors is a subject I've spoken a lot about in the public media here. First of all, Nigeria is one of the least mechanized countries in the world. If you were to compare it, say, with America, not perhaps the fairest of comparisons, you've got one tractor per 1,013 arable hectares. In the United States, they've got one tractor per 36 arable hectares. There's a huge gap. If you were to look at sub-Saharan Africa, they're short of about 3 million tractors. Okay? And you can't produce food in the quantities or productively unless you mechanize. It's impossible. However, conversely, and I can say this as the provider of the world's #1 tractor, Massey Ferguson, okay, it's very, very difficult for Nigeria to increase mechanization or the penetration of mechanization at 20-25% interest rates. It's virtually impossible. You can't build an agriculture, a successful agricultural sector at those kinds of high interest rates. There's been many, many schemes. There's probably more alphabets for the schemes that have been proposed. Many of them well-meaning schemes, but many of them very complicated. And many of them not extending to enough farmers. So there needs to be simplification of access to low-cost finance. And I think people like the Bank of Industry are really doing a lot of work in that area. Okay, it's not just the fact that you've got a scheme, but it's the simplification of access to that scheme. To be fair to banks, banks are in the business of satisfying their shareholders, that they lend money, they get a reasonable return, and they manage the risk. And part of the management of risk is connected with collateral. And the structure of, for example, the Land Use Act and the traditions in terms of land ownership, both north, east, south and west in Nigeria, makes land is not being used like in other countries as readily available collateral for long-term loans to farmers at low interest rates for increased mechanization. So these are some of the issues that government have looked at, they need to look at more. And my voice from the field is keep it simple. And it's difficult to keep it simple, because whenever you have a scheme, some speculator will try and undermine or abuse the scheme. So I understand the challenges of government, but they have to find a way to get cheap, available funding into the hands of real and genuine farmers, step by step. Because if you don't mechanize, you cannot produce the food you need. Never mind to become an export economy in food, which long term must be your goal, although you've got some huge challenges. Okay? But even today, just to feed your teeming population, this is a major, major issue for government. And government knows it. We do service and serve other crop areas, no question about it. I mean, tractors, for example, are serving rice, soybeans, maize, cassava. So we do, we are involved in other crops. Our greenhouse is primarily focused on tomato. Why? Tomato, worldwide, is one of the highest cash crops. The life cycles, the crop cycles, are relatively small. I mean, for example, if you were to invest in palm oil, you're going to wait 7 years before you're going to get any meaningful yields. If you're investing in tomatoes, you will do 2 crop cycles in the first year. A crop cycle of tomatoes about 90-95 days in total. Yeah. Okay, I'm just giving you an overview. There's some complexities involved. So it's a huge cash crop. I mean, in Europe, per hectare, it's reported that tomatoes make roughly €500,000 per hectare, per season. And we know in greenhouse farming in Nigeria, those are the kinds of yields that our growers are getting. Those are the kinds of returns that our growers are getting. Okay?
Well, this is the time we permit us. We want to draw the wrap of the program. I want to say thank you so very, very much. Well, I've always said this. Don't forget, you are the only one that can stop yourself. I repeat, you are the only one that can stop yourself. Whatever you can dream, conceive in your heart is achievable. These are the stories of Nigerians and non-Nigerians who have done so very much, and also they are a success. You can also be like them. You can also be a success. I will see you at the other side of the tunnel. That is the other side of success. Stay blessed and also pray for all your leaders. God bless you.